I'd like to thank our sponsors, Blood Moon Box, a monthly subscription box service for period pads and tampons to help support all humans who have a cycle for that time of the month, and no need to run to a store to mix and match period supplies that don't cater to the entire ebbs and flows of your cycle. There are 2 box options based on your cycle, light and medium, and then heavy. And in addition to the period products, you'll also receive PMS herbal teas, a candle, and some other items for your time of the month. You can reserve a box by navigating to bloodmoonbox.com. And bloodmoonbox.com is on a mission to destigmatize the idea of period blood. At Blood Moon Box, they believe that it is the time to honor the enchanting magic within every person who has a cycle. So join us in embracing the magic of your cycle with Blood Moon Box. Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today's episode is with Joanna Pitt, a writer, evolutionary astrologer, yoga and meditation teacher, and producer of wellness events and media. She's a graduate of Duke University and has an extensive career across entertainment, tech startups, advertising, and the wellness industry. And over the last decade, she's been focused on personal growth and expanding consciousness through different modalities, including Kundalini yoga, meditation, mantra, sound healing, and the study and application of astrology. She is deeply inquisitive and passionate in using the teaching of language of the cosmos to understand how energy moves within us and reframe our experiences as divine gifts. She's also recording an album of mantra music and producing a travel adventure series about the spiritual mysteries of the natural world. And you can check out Joanna's astrology offerings and get a reading at Twin Fawn Astrology, and that will be included in the show notes. And Joanna is actually a friend of mine, and so I am so excited to welcome her onto the show. She has such an incredible depth of knowledge on so many different subjects. But today we're going to talk about evolutionary astrology and dive into the houses. So welcome to the show, Joanna.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
So to kick it off, Joanna, can you tell us, what is evolutionary astrology and how is it different than maybe other types of astrology?
Well, people have been looking at the stars in the sky and watching the planets move for millennia. There are many, many different ways and approaches to astrology and understanding who we are and where we fit into, the field of the universe, right? Where do we land? How do we relate? Where is the energy moving and flowing? And in evolutionary astrology, we're taking a deeper dive, particularly around these energy force fields of, where we came from, how do we fit in this lifetime, where our soul wants to be, where it belongs, and where it's headed. So in evolutionary astrology, we spend a lot of time looking at the planet Pluto, which represents our soul's desire in this lifetime, and also the nodes of the moon that show us our gifts, our past evolutionary intent and our future evolutionary intent in terms of our emotionality, our feeling body, and our lunar state as they are nodes of the moon, for example. So it's a different, deeper take, I think, than other types of studies of astrology, but it's particularly fascinating to me to see this field grow over the last few decades. I mean, there's just been a lot of education, a lot of books have come out, a lot of, translations of ancient texts, for example, that are giving us other tools and things that we can use to approach our lives, because it's quite complicated to live in the world today. There's a lot of energy moving around, right? There's a lot of strife, but there's a longing to belong. And in evolutionary astrology, that's what we're focused on.
when it comes to understanding our past, where we're coming from and then also where we're going, I think this is what is very different than any other types of astrology, compared to evolutionary astrology. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the nodes, and specifically the North Node and the South Node, and why understanding these nodes on our charts are so important. And you can also use my chart as an example for our audience.
First, let's explain what the nodes of the moon are. The lunar nodes are the 2 points where the moon's orbital path crosses the ecliptic, which is the sun's yearly path on the celestial sphere. So this is about the moon, the sun, and the earth aligning. And the nodes of the moon bring eclipses. So they're opportunity points. You could imagine it that way as well. They move around through the zodiac into a different sign about approximately every 18 months. And the nodes of the moon are the facets of our sense of self and self-image from the past, South Node, to the future, North Node. And the moon represents our sense of self, our emotional body, our feeling body, our lineage in this lifetime. It's our present emotional structure in this current lifetime. But the thing that's interesting about the North and the South Node is that they are directly opposing one another. And the South Node can represent our old what we came into this lifetime with. So it's stuff that we already know. It's the familiar. It's our gifts. It's already information or feelings and emotions that are already integrated into ourself. It's in some ways could be the forgotten past, right? Because we've already integrated it. We don't necessarily have to work on it so much anymore. We rely on it. And the North Node is where we're heading. It's a little bit harder because we haven't gotten there yet, right? So we're evolving and developing into this future self-image, into the future emotional structure that we're looking to build in this lifetime. And for you, for example, as I mentioned, they're always opposite one another. Your North Node is in Gemini and the South Node is in Sagittarius. And Gemini and Sagittarius, on the whole, represent the archetype of the teacher and student. In Gemini, we're learning facts and figures. We're getting our brain to work. We're naming things. We're identifying information. In Sagittarius, we're learning canons of knowledge. We're delving into philosophy and we're understanding natural law, which is this conversation we're having right now, right? About astrology and about the planets and about the cosmic field and the energy of the universe. So these energies go back and forth. South Node and Sagittarius, this information comes easy. I've been listening to your podcast, right? These conversations are deep and intellectual. You understand the fundamentals of how energy works and how the cosmic field is moving, the quantum field, right? How to navigate through time and space. This is deep information, right? A lot of people don't grasp it quite so easily. But the North Node is in Gemini. Well, now how do I parse it out? How do I make it accessible to people? Can I write this information down in an essay or in a book, right? Podcasting, this is Gemini. Media, broadcasting, Sagittarius. So in many ways, you're living these archetypes out with your gifts, South Node, and where you're headed, North Node. In more ancient and Vedic astrology, they call the South Node the tail of the dragon, and the North Node is the head of the dragon. It's a lot more around karma and fate. I prefer, again, in the tradition of evolutionary astrology, to really see this as a spectrum of, where we've been and where we're headed. I think that opens up a lot more possibilities for us.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much, Joanna. I think that when I heard this for the first time, and I actually have never heard it the way you described it, so I love getting this additional piece of wisdom always from you. But when I heard this the first time, I was like, wow, that's so fascinating that my North Node is Gemini. And for those listening, you can look up your North Node or get a reading to really understand what your North Node is, so that it can inform you in terms of where you're going. And I think that for me was really revelatory, because very little of my chart is Gemini. I don't think I have Gemini Gemini and any other place
Yeah,
except for Venus.
You have a conjunction, actually, meaning the planets are together here. Well, I'm using that term widely, right? The North Node is conjunct the planet Venus. And so that Venus also informs this destiny direction. It's very important to bring in Venusian themes. This is feminine receptive energy. So rather than having sort of an aggressive conversation or aggressive communication, maybe with a Mars there, for example, Venus is there. So it's a lot warmer. It's open. It's more aligned with your values and attunement to how you want your energy to flow. And that also, again, where the planets are really can give us a lot of information. They don't all stand alone. And that's kind of the beauty of looking at the chart as an entire system in and of itself.
I want to actually double click on this point because I think for a lot of folks listening, they may not understand, what do all the planets have to do with their own chart? And then we'll dive into the houses. But if you could talk about, why is understanding the planets so important? And especially when it comes to, something like, where is your Mars located? And where's everything placed and why does that matter? And again, you can use my chart as a reference point as an example.
Well, the astrology chart is a blueprint of where the planets were at the moment that you were born. That's really the most important thing to understand. It's a snapshot, like just a little photograph or a screen grab, if you will, of the sky at that moment. And it's all informed by the day you were born, the time you were born, and the place you were born. Because don't forget, and I think people, we learn this in elementary school science, right? The Earth is on an axis. It's moving around all the time, and then it's tilting back and forth, and it's revolving around the sun. So there's so many cycles for us that we're aligning with, like living on Earth and being on Earth. And all of that informs how your chart will look. And there's many different ways that the houses are divided, and the houses also are sort of a snapshot of the sky. But this is in many ways telling the story of your life. And all of the planets have energy. And there's a beautiful quote by Marion March that I would love to share that's going to inform this, and I think is very helpful to bring it to life, which is the planets are the actors. The signs are the roles that they play, and the houses are the settings or the situation in which the cast portrays its roles. So just imagine that, like, you're in a high school musical, right? There's a cast of characters on stage. Those are all of the planets. They all have different role to play. Some of them are a little loud. Some of them are more intellectual. Some of them are warm. The moon, for example, is that feeling state, right? They're emoting a lot, maybe. And then where they are on stage, sort of what setting is it in, or what are they supposed to do there? They're given a job, right? So a Capricorn's job is to be an authority, or to be a teacher, or to be the president. Maybe the moon's job, or Cancer's job, I should say, would be maybe it's the mother figure, or the sister, or a family member. So all of these areas through the signs and the planets are taking a little piece of our daily existence, of what it's like to be a person in the world, show up as ourselves, relate to other people, use our intelligence, do work in the world, exchange energy. Maybe it's for commerce, right? Making money. Or maybe it's just that we're having a dialogue and a conversation, and we're having a relationship. Maybe it's between two people, or maybe it's between, one person and many, right? Sometimes I know you've done a lot of public speaking. So you're on stage and you're talking to a large group of people. That's a very different experience than here us today having a one-on-one exchange, right? So we go through all of these different parts of our lives all of the time. And then the houses will really show us the environment of where it's happening. So it's like, you've got 5 people doing different things on stage. They each have a role to play. This one is the instigator. This one is the negotiator. We've got one person that just wants to make everybody feel good, and they're like the jester, the court jester, for example. And it's all taking place in your high school gymnasium. right? That's kind of what we're talking about. And then you can move these players around however you want. But the natal chart is sort of like just the base, right? It's where we've begun. And then now we live our life and we play out the themes that are represented there. We play out the story that shows up for us. And that's where the houses come in that's very interesting, because when you're looking at your astrology chart, if somebody reads it for you, or if you're looking on an app or something, there's many times for a lot of people that there are houses where there's no activity. And that doesn't mean that, you're not going to have a career, right? For example, the chart I'm looking at for you, you don't have any planets in the 10th house. And the 10th house is the house of our career and in the public sphere, for example, or organizations, or, areas of the father or the mother or some authority figure. Now, that doesn't mean that doesn't exist in your life. It just means that your blueprint is showing other things that you're working on in this lifetime. So the planets are constantly moving, and they're moving around the sky all the time. They come back to where they began, right? Our birthday every year, we call the solar return. That's the day, our birthday, when the sun comes back to the exact degree and minute of the time that you were born. Sometimes, because the calendars don't match up, it usually doesn't happen at the exact time of your birth. Maybe it happens 6 hours before, or the day before, or the day after. So that can vary. But the solar return is the moment the sun comes back to that location in the sign and in the house where you were born.
And so let's talk a little bit about all the different houses and what they represent, because I think that would be really important for some folks. And again, feel free to use me as an example.
Right. So the houses are designated 1 through 12. And the first house always begins sort of in theory at dawn. So wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day you are born, it is always dawn somewhere, right? The sun is rising somewhere in the sky. And that in astrology is related to the rising sign or the ascendant. And that sets the first house. And before I go specific through each one of them, I also want to say that the first 6 houses are under the horizon. They're sort of internal. It's kind of like the nighttime area of our chart. And then houses 7 through 12 are external. It's the sunlight, the daylight above the horizon. It's more solar energy and an external social approach, rather than that 1st through 6th house, which are nocturnal and more feminine. Actually, it's more private. It's the part of our chart, the first 6 houses, when we're really working on ourselves internally, who we are, what I'm about, what's important to me, personal development. And again, we have all of this stuff is active, whether you have planets in any of these houses or not. So the first house is Aries energy, ruled by the planet Mars. And this is about self-honoring our own individual being. We're coming into the world. We're expressing our identity. It's our presentation. It also can be our physical body. For example, it's like, hello world, this is me, this is what I look like, this is what I'm all about. And the sort of theme for this is an I am energy, really establishing yourself as an individual, as an authority, and being aware of who you are. Then we move into the second house, which is ruled by Taurus and the planet Venus. And this is all about deepening into the self. What do I have? What do I value? What's mine? What belongs to me? We really start understanding here our own self-worth, what is important to us in regards to our values, what's of substance to us. And that can also be money and how we spend our day and our time with work or daily routine. We're self-sufficient here. We learn self-sufficiency, like, okay, I can take care of myself. I'm using my sensory system. I'm using my sight and my taste and my touch and sound to navigate through the world. And then the third house is Gemini's house, ruled by the planet Mercury. And we're delving a little bit more into our immediate environment here. We're starting to understand how we think. We're starting to get some awareness of the world. The third house can represent sometimes short distance travel. So it's sort of like taking a trip down to the beach or something like that. If the beach is close to you, for example, taking a short drive or a couple hour drive to go somewhere. So you're exploring the world little by little. We're really using the mind here and understanding what things are. We're learning about the world. We're learning how to name things and categorize ideas and concepts. And as I mentioned to you with your North Node in Gemini, this is about teaching also and learning, communicating, sharing information because we're so excited. We've just, it's funny. I don't know if you've ever talked to a young person who's in their freshman year of college and they'll come home and they'll just go off on everything that they've learned. Like they're the first person in the world to know it, right? They're so excited to share the information. That's Gemini. It's very fun. The third house is very, very fun. It can also represent your siblings, and it's the sign of the symbol of Gemini is the twins. So there's a duality here in terms of relationships and relating to something else. The fourth house is Cancer's house, ruled by the moon. And this is very private. It's our private inner world where we're really exploring our feelings and our emotions and also our sense of safety and security. The fourth house can represent the physical home or whatever home may feel to you, and also the family or whatever the family may feel to you. A lot of people I know you and I have spoken, you have a giant family, right? They're all over the world and you're connecting with them at different times in different places and spaces. So it's very, very vast for you. Some people have very small families, but they create a family through their yoga community or, through some sort of association that they're involved in or like a sorority or something like that. If people are still doing that, I'm not sure. Or even something like a Facebook group, right? These people can feel like your family. That's fourth house information. You have planets in the fourth house, Pluto and Saturn. So very powerful, very transformative, very dynamic. Saturn is a planet of limitations and structures and building, and Pluto is all about transformation. So I don't know if I would have thought immediately of such a large family, but certainly a family that's been through a lot and that's constantly evolving. Does that track for you for your fourth house?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Super interesting.
The fourth house too, because of that feeling energy, this is where we learn emotional self-reliance. And this is a really important facet, particularly of evolutionary astrology. If you really want to move through this lifetime and learn the lessons that you're meant to learn, you have to understand who you are, and you have to understand that you're the only one that's going to save you. Because nobody else, it's you and you at the end of the day. And I think this is a really hard lesson and a very, very important lesson for all of us. I actually just saw a video of Gary Vee talking about this. He goes, what would it look like if you just took responsibility for everything? That's Cancer. Just take responsibility for it all. Understand that you can carry that load. Very, very interesting concept to think about. All right, moving along into the fifth house. This is Leo energy ruled by the sun. And this is where our ego starts to assert itself. It's the will of the person. Very creative energy, high life affirming energy. Also plenty of drama, right? We want to be seen here. We're shining our bright, bright light. The sun is the energy of the heart. So imagine this sort of heart energy shining. I also love to use the analogy of a Klieg light, or, just the spotlight is on you, really bright, shining your most beautiful, elaborate, creative self. There's a lot of play here, romance as well. And this is where we start to do like creative self-actualization. Again, like we've built on everything that's come before: the first house of the self, the second house of our values, the third house of our intelligence and our mind, the fourth house of our feeling and emotional body. And now we're kind of wrapping it around and creating something very dynamic that we're going to, bring out into the world. And then the sixth house, which is the last house of this sort of inner world, is ruled by Virgo, the sign Virgo, and the planet Mercury. And this is an area where we do a lot of analyzing and where we do a lot of self-improvement. So health is very important, health and healing, and also our daily job, our daily tasks and routine. Virgo is can be selfless to to the detriment of like sacrificing everything, right? So how does duty land on you? Where do you give yourself up or sacrifice yourself for other people? Where are you asserting yourself and saying, no, this is my line, right? I can only do so much to others because I have a lot to work on for myself. And that line gets crossed a lot and often. And people with planets in the sixth house often have a lot of energy around being self-critical, right? Because you're always trying to do the right thing and you're trying to get everything done. So very analytical, tied into that routine of work and our daily habits and our daily jobs. It's important not to forget that this is also where things can kind of go south with our physical health. So in that first house, we're talking about our physical body, but the sixth house is in some ways the energetic body, and wanting to make sure that energy is flowing properly through the system. Otherwise, we get sick. And that looks very different for pretty much everybody, right? How it shows up in the body. It could be an actual, like something with the glandular system, or you know what I mean? Like it could be any type of illness or something like that. So it's just something to watch if you have planets in the sixth house.
And I'm curious, how the planets interact with some of the houses maybe if you could give an example. I know you mentioned it in the fourth house, but yeah, I'm curious if you could speak to an example of that.
Well, it's definitely going to depend on everybody's chart because we all have different planets in different places, right? So,
Right.
And they're going to behave in different ways, again, based on the planet, the energy around the planet, the sign, right? The role it's playing out, and then in this environment. So, a Venus in the sixth house is going to behave slightly differently than Saturn in the sixth house, for example. Saturn in the sixth house is probably going to be extremely critical and really want to just run everything, has a very tight ship, it'd be somebody that, right? Like they're sticking to their routine. They're going to have their calendar of events and like, you can't move off of, we're 5 minutes late and like, things come crashing down.
I think I know some people with that with that makeup. I'm joking, but
well, it's interesting because I just want to say too, like for myself, I have a lot of planets in the sixth house, and one of the things I've been thinking a lot about, because I am very critical of myself, and the voice in my head is not very kind, but it's getting kinder over the years. But one thing I will say about this is I'm very attuned to my health. Like I pay attention to everything I eat. I, monitor, like, am I getting the right amount of exercise? If I done too much yoga today, not enough yoga today, right? It's a constant thought stream in my head. You wouldn't know because it's not something that I express necessarily, but the amount of time spent thinking about my health is quite enormous. And that's one way that it could play out.
Fascinating. I'm okay. And I'm curious, what do I have in the sixth house? Because I don't think I'm...
You have the South Node that we talked about, the South Node in Sagittarius, and and Neptune, the planet Neptune. So in many ways, this could be, the South Node that we talked about was that the gifts or the energies that came through the past life. And in Sagittarius, which is all about knowledge and philosophy and expansion and growth. So this is your daily work. Like, you work in the field of knowledge and consciousness and understanding and talking about natural law all the time.
Got it. And so to interpret that, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think that's what
I love this question. I love this question. I have a lot of planets in Libra as well. And this is my perfectly Libra answer. Energy is neutral. There is no good and bad. It's all about how you use it. That is really all we can offer, right? We're, as individuals, growing up and expanding and learning and trying to navigate the world, we come across all of these different roadblocks of how we should behave and how we should think about ourselves and what we need to accomplish, right? And we develop these limiting beliefs over time of, oh, this is good, or oh, this is bad, or I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't do that. My approach to all of this is simply, this is an energy blueprint. You can use it however you want.
Got it. I think it's interesting, like the way that I interpreted this is that exploring all these different realms of consciousness is kind of something that I have an overdeveloped skill set for. And yet where I'm going, which is Gemini, is to maybe be a little bit more specific and to focus on maybe one body of knowledge and then bring it into fruition from myself. Yeah.
Yes. And then this is also where you can understand where the houses come in, right? That past south node in the 6th house, as you just said it, I know how to do this. It's easy for me to be organized, to fall in the energy field of, talking about these issues and understanding them and bringing them out into the public. And the North Node is in the 12th house. We haven't gotten there yet, but that is the area of the dream state and of the subconscious and deep spirituality and unconditional love. So that 6th house, 12th house can show up as, analysis paralysis, 6th house. Am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? And also like victim martyrdom. I've taken on so much, I've lost myself. But our ultimate goal, and your ultimate goal with your North Node, is to merge with the infinite and to go into the deeper understanding of the cosmic field and the creative intelligence of the world. That is where you're headed, and you're doing it in Gemini. So now you're putting words, right? You need to communicate this to others, and you're doing it.
Got it.
You're already living this out. Because the thing, again, it's like both of these things are here all the time. The South Node and the North Node are playing out always. They're both in your chart. We go back and forth sometimes of, do I trust myself? Have I learned enough? Am I evolved enough to take it to the next level? Right? Where am I going? Rather than understanding, no, these two facets are actually working together, and I can go back and forth and pick up what I need that I already know to take towards the future of where I'm headed. And maybe this is a road that I haven't yet traveled.
Got it. Okay. So I know we have 6 more houses.
And that goes for everybody. Yeah, we have more. But I just want to say too, that goes for everybody with their North and South Node. That it's always that back and forth moving, right, from the past through the present towards the future. All right. Now we're going into the daytime houses, where we're moving out of the internal world that we've explored, who we are, why we are who we are, how we learn to have fun, etc., and moving to the external world where we're starting to relate to other people. The 7th house is Libra's house, ruled by the planet Venus, and this is all about the other, the you, or the we, potentially, because we're here in relationship. So 7th house is about cooperation, relationships, and particularly understanding the self-other balance. You as an individual in relation to something or someone else. So the 1st house, opposite the 7th, is about me, who I am, what I want, what I'm showing up to do. The 7th house is about we. How do we get there together? How can I learn from you and you learn from me? So sacred relationships, it could be collaborative relationships, business relationships, romantic relationships, familial relationships. Again, you're sharing with others. You're learning how to have your own unique style of conversation and, equality and balance and justice. A lot of business takes place in the seventh house as well. It's not just like, oh, hey, we're friends, let's go have a good time. It's sort of like, no, we're actually here to do something together and to get something from one another. The eighth house is Scorpio's house, ruled by the planet Pluto. And this takes that relational aspect of the seventh to the next level, where we're going more towards intimacy and co-creating with other people. We're deepening our understanding of our desires and what we want from others. We're deepening our intimacy. We're learning self-empowerment as well. And because Pluto is there, there's that soul energy, and there's a deep concept here of transformation and regeneration. Sometimes the eighth house is known as the house of endings. So it could represent death, for example, but it also represents, again, regeneration. So birth and sex and, resources from the universe or co-creating with another person. And again, going deeper. And you could even say with Scorpio, darker, to a darker, deeper, darker place, where you're really understanding how to integrate and become a unit of you and something else. The eighth house also can represent other people's money, because again, that's a co-creation of energy, right? I have my money, you have your money, I'm getting your money. It could be taxes or a mortgage or a loan or an inheritance, for example, shared resources.
Okay.
The ninth house is Sagittarius. By the way, your moon is in the eighth house, so there's information there for you. I wanted to share that as well.
Oh,
the ninth.
Wait, Joanna, you can't just keep going. Tell me
just keep going.
Come on, what does that mean?
Well, again, you've got a moon in Aquarius, so there's a lot of innovation here. So it's very interested in, your moon is very interested in embarking in intimate relationships in new and novel ways. There's kind of a freedom in a way of going deep, right? There's a freedom of taking it to the next level, because Scorpio and eighth house energy really does want to reveal secrets. You could also say that Scorpios do not want to reveal secrets, right? If you can get inside of that outer shell, right? Scorpio is a exoskeleton of that, the symbol where it's like crunch, squish. So to get in, once you've worked your way inside, right, through this relationship, through the partnership, creating intimacy becomes a very deep and beautiful experience. And to have a planet there, and for you, it's the moon, which is incredibly personal. It's your energetic body. That's where you want to head. You want to head towards deep intimacy with others. It also may very well be easy to get money from other people, or, to activate and get, use the resources of others for your own betterment and for, whatever it is, the work that you're doing or the things that you need in life to keep you safe, the moon.
That's cool.
Does that register? All right.
Yes, it does. It does register.
All right, good.
Yeah. And
I want to make sure.
I think it's like interesting, when we talk about the Aquarian age, I'm making a little bit of a segue, but it's interesting, like what the Aquarius sign means for the future. And also, does that have anything to do with the terminology, the Aquarian age? Because everyone keeps talking about that.
Yes, there are a myriad of ways that people are approaching the Aquarian age that are quite involved. But there is a major shift in our current circumstance, because the planet Pluto transiting through and orbiting through our universe is moving into the sign of Aquarius. We had a little preview this year. It went back into Capricorn and it's moving in. So a lot of people are using this as sort of a preview, but the quote unquote Aquarian age is actually a thousands of years long cycle that we are moving towards. And a lot of people have different ideas of when that's happening. In the yoga tradition that, I practice, this energy is, we're kind of moving into it now. And it's really going to be, it takes like a couple, 100 years potentially even to maneuver into it. it's jarring, right, to move through these different cycles. It's jarring enough for us to like, move through our own life cycles. And now we're talking about giant epics of, different ways of thinking and different levels of consciousness. So the Aquarian age is about innovation, and it's about the individual as well. And it's about community and a community of individuals. We're really creating and highlighting our own uniqueness. And that's coming out a lot because Aquarius also represents technology and the higher mind. Aquarius is an air sign, and all air signs are bringing in energy from the ethers, right, through the crown. Hopefully we're understanding them and creating, positive ideas about the future and about the collective. And so it's very dynamic. A lot of what's going on in AI, science, medicine, technology, this is all Aquarian stuff. It's happening. We're experiencing it. And also now, and social media as well, like these social networks that are virtual. People are having a hard time because it's new. And this is the period that we're in right now, the last, you could even say several decades, and certainly where we are now and heading towards, the future, the 2020s, the 2030s, we're going to have to integrate all of this. And I hear stuff like, people that are like, I'm against electric cars. We don't have the infrastructure. Well, we're just starting, right? Like we're just getting started here. How can you, and this is part of this transition of really understanding the limitations of our own mind to really truly get the fact that like we have no idea what's coming.
Right.
Because whatever the technology that we see today, I promise you 20 years from now, it's going to be completely different. And our children's children will have no concept. Like a rotary phone will just be, it's like, it doesn't even, they're going to look at one another and have complete telepathy. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen. We're entering into a whole new realm.
Yeah.
That's my opinion about Aquarius and this new age. But it's exciting. It's exciting. And for you with your moon there and, anybody that has planets in Aquarius, you're already naturally inclined towards this, doing things a little bit differently, taking initiative, stepping away from the past and the structures of how things always have been done, whether that's in your family, 4th house, or your career, 10th house, or, in your case here in the 8th house, the area around intimacy and deep relationships and co-creating with the universe. So that's how you can kind of energetically start to put the story together, right? Is to find the planet, understand what the sign's all about, and then put it in that part of your life, the house, where it's playing out.
I love that. Okay. And so I don't want to keep cutting you off because I definitely want to get through the houses, and I know that we have a hard stop. So,
all right. We'll go quickly. So the 9th house is Sagittarius, ruled by the planet Jupiter. And this is where, and I know we talked a little bit about this already because of your South Node in Sagittarius. This is the house of understanding and knowledge. We learn natural law here, connect to the universe. This is where we expand and grow and really get the fact that there's a bigger world beyond us as a small individual. It's a house of life, very fun, dynamic. There's a lot of fire energy here. And we want to learn compassionate understanding in the 9th house, because again, if you're exploring the world and going to foreign countries, right, you're learning new languages, the only way to do it is by having an open mind, right? And really expanding, again, consciousness. This is very Sagittarian, 9th house. Now, the 10th house is ruled by Capricorn and the planet Saturn. And this is our public life. So it could be the area of your career or leadership, organizations that you might belong to. Maybe you're a business owner, for example, or you're involved in sort of the structure of a business. Authority figures show up here, the parents, for example, or anybody that is sort of a leader in your field, or, the CEO of your company. In the 10th house, we learn how to honor ourselves in regards to self-mastery and our self-determination. Again, this is about maturity and stepping up and taking responsibility, right? How we're using our time, how we're showing up to other people. And I kind of mentioned this a little when we were talking about the fourth house, right? Emotional self-reliance. That's opposite this 10th house energy around self-mastery and self-authority. So really understanding who you are as a whole human being and how you show up in the world as a whole human being. And what happens then? You respect yourself. Other people respect you. You have good boundaries. You understand your own limits. That's a lot of 10th house energy, Capricorn energy. 11th house is Aquarius, which we already talked about in depth. So this is a deeper and a very much of a higher state of knowing. Aquarius, as I mentioned, air sign. We can commune intellectually with the higher realms here. So if you've ever had what we in the wellness world call a download, right? Where information, knowledge just comes to you. You just know, or, you hear voices or something like that. That's Aquarius. It's just, there's a level of heightened consciousness that now becomes available here. Aquarius and 11th house is extremely social, groups of friends, community. And also, again, there's that individuation. So really knowing who you are within a community so that you can show up and be a leader of that community.
I think
in Aquarius.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think I have a lot of things going on in the 11th house from what I think.
You have 4 planets in the 11th house, right? So humanitarianism is also a hallmark of this Aquarian energy. This is where we're sharing and caring, and we're really paying attention to others. It's not just about us anymore. We're out in the world. We're wanting to make the world a better place, whether it's our small community, our large community, or the entire, world or universe. We make strategic alliances in the 11th house. And it's, again, we're in here in the public sphere, right? We just we're in their career spot in the 10th house, and the 11th house just takes it to that next level where we're sharing with the world.
I love that.
And then the 12th house. Yeah, it's very fascinating to see also because you get a sense of what people are about when they have planets in these areas. It just becomes natural to them. You've got a lot of friends. You've got a giant network. People with nothing in the 11th house, maybe they have smaller circles of friends, for example.
Yeah.
You can start to play around with it and learn a little bit more about how you operate through this blueprint. The 12th house is Pisces energy, ruled by the planet Neptune. And this is the final house and final sign of the zodiac. It's the culmination of everything. It's, in some ways, it's the ending of the journey where we find our endings, where we are deeply communicating and understanding interdependence in regards to the universal life force or creative force or God force. The subconscious is very active here. If you have planets in the 12th house, you might have some psychic abilities. That is very much of a hallmark because, again, this is hidden. You're in the dream world here. We can't always see things in the 12th house, but we understand that the energy of the force is all about unconditional love and harmony. There could be mental health issues here as well. Addiction sometimes can be a hallmark of the 12th house because the thing with addiction that's interesting is people are looking for something, right? They become addicted to something because they're getting a high. There's something that's actually working for them, right? And they want more and more of that feeling. But the truth of the matter is that the feeling is already in them. We don't really have to look hard or use something outside of us. We just need to feel into it. So yoga and meditation is an activity for anyone that wants to activate their 12th house, or if you have planets there, maybe that comes naturally to you. I've met people that are like, I've been meditating since I was 10 years old, right? A lot of the children coming in now, they're wanting to do yoga and meditation, or, other types of sound healing or something like that. Like they understand that frequency. And there's a lot of opportunity here as well for forgiveness, because again, when we come to the end and it's just you and you at the end of the day and at the end of your life, be kind, right? Figure it out, let it go. Whatever needs to be released gets released. I love the 12th house and Pisces energy. I always use the metaphor of the ocean, right? Pisces symbol is the fish, and Neptune is the god of the sea. And the ocean is vast and wide and beautiful and deep. And you walk into the ocean, right? You're at the water's edge or a lake or any body of water, and you can see your feet usually. You can feel the sand. It's really beautiful. It's clear, hopefully, wherever you are, clear, crystal blue. You walk a little bit further in, and sometimes the bottom will drop out from under your feet, right? Like you can't touch the bottom anymore. And all of a sudden, you're on your own. And you have to rely on yourself, because you could get lost out there, right? You can get caught in a riptide or whatever. You can get, I love these stories of people sailing solo around the world. I just admire them so much. But that's very Neptunian and Pisces or 12th house experience, to sort of be out there and just communing with God and, with the nature and the cycles of the universe for a higher purpose.
What sort of things have surprised you the most on this journey?
Well, one of the things that I love is seeing everybody's unique pattern, right? Where their energy is oriented towards and how it's showing up for them. I feel that, again, I've been practicing yoga and meditation for a long time and really deepening my understanding of myself, who I am, what my purpose here is, what my North Node is doing as well, right? We're all looking for meaning and purpose in our lives. And the thing that's really surprising me the most is how much information is available here just by looking at the planet configurations. I mean, even for you, 4 planets in one house, that's a lot of energy, right? Are you living that are you living that promise of those planets in that particular configuration in this part of your life, whether it's, your career or, the social world or, communities and bringing people together? And often people are, but they don't think they are, or they're not trusting. And one of the things that I really want to bring forward is that we do have the capacity to really turn inward and to listen to what the energy of our own experience is telling us, rather than relying on the outside, right? Because we're all kind of, well, tell me, you tell me, da, da, da. And I think part of astrology, and again, as I mentioned, astrology is a hallmark of Aquarius. We're entering into this new phase. This language is grown and people are understanding it and using it. And it's not even a joke anymore to say, oh, well, this, Mercury retrograde, et cetera, because it's just happening and we're already attuned to the energy. Right. And there's nothing that we have to account for or apologize for. We're just flowing with it and we're using it. And that has been a real magic moment, over and over and over, to discover this through pretty much every conversation that I have with someone, whether they're attuned to their chart or not.
So what about where people can find you? If someone wants to do a reading or if they want to get more information on your work, this has been just so fascinating. And I feel like we just scratched the surface. So you are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, we could talk for 10 hours about this. So where can people find you?
It is interesting. And I really do love these conversations. And one of the things I would like to say as well is I absolutely do readings, astrology readings to just look at your natal chart and also look at the transiting planets as they move around and activate different parts of your chart, whether that's through an eclipse or a particular planetary movement or a solstice, for example. And I've also been really enjoying. I've been doing some teaching, which I love, and really working with people more than once, which I think gives us, as you and I kind of discovered, is like we're just barely scratching the surface. We're just getting our feet wet, right?
Right.
And so that part I've really been enjoying, and I'm going to do more of that into the new year and beyond, of just working deeper with people and on an ongoing basis to sort of develop and understand the chart and how the energy is working for them. So my website is twinfawnsastrology.com. And there you can learn about my offerings and reach out to me if you have questions. And more is to come. I'm excited. There's a few things I'm planning in terms of conversations and classes and deeper dive containers on some of these topics, particularly around Saturn and the idea around maturity and taking responsibility and us growing as individuals, because that has been just something that I've enjoyed more than I can even possibly say in my own life, and delving into these topics and growing and understanding how consciousness works, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very exciting time, and I'm just happy to be here talking with you today.
Joanna, thank you so much for your time. This was just such a pleasure to connect with you and to learn about all these houses and nodes and astrology and so much more. I mean, I think when you speak about this world, you're really speaking about it from, an advanced, master of the cosmos. So it's beyond just astrology, in my opinion. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening. On this episode, we learned about the importance of astrology and the 12 houses with Joanna Pitt. And you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again. What would you like to see change in your life? And what is the biggest obstacle that you're facing now? I run a 5-week program at the Inner Knowing School for serious individuals who are ready to take the next step in their personal and professional lives. I will personally be coaching a small group of individuals, a number of practical tools and frameworks for creating an intuition practice and for self-mastery. You can find more at theinnerknowingschool.com. I have a master certification in intuition medicine, and I've condensed 10 plus years of experience and research navigating how to harness your energy and intuition in an easy to access live curated course. Now, as someone who's helped countless creatives, entrepreneurs, and many who are just plain stuck, open doors of possibility they never thought existed, I've seen this strategy transform people's inner states and external reality. And the best part is that you'll skyrocket your output and unlock your creative genius. I'll work with you weekly live to overcome your limiting beliefs and show you how to manage your energy instead of your time. I'll teach you how to create clarity, processes, develop your intuition based on some of the top tools and frameworks that I've developed, and you'll get access to guided meditations and visualizations not available anywhere else. This method is so effective that even if you don't have that much time, or if you think that you might not be ready, this will work for you. You can check out the link in the show notes to join the waiting list, and you can check out what past clients had to say about the program. Wishing you all many blessings ahead.